This program is for educational purposes only. Before starting any health or exercise-related program, consult your physician. Welcome to Your Body for God with Dr. Tony Ganem. Dr. Tony is the clinical director of the Body Pro Wellness Center in Santa Ana, California. He believes that maximizing your health is critical in order to function at your best for yourself, your family, and most importantly for God, because the Bible tells us that we were created by Him and for Him. Time to maximize your health. Here's your host, Dr. Tony Ganem.
Welcome to Your Body for God. This is Dr. Tony Ganem from the Body Pro Wellness Center, and I hope you're having an amazing day wherever you're at today. Whether you're listening to us on the radio or a podcast series on iTunes or however you're listening to us today, I hope your day is blessed, and I hope you sense that God is in control of your day, and boy, is He in control of your day. We're going to talk more about how God is so in control of everything in our world, and how sometimes we miss the littlest things, which are really the biggest things, and we don't realize that God is involved in everything that we're doing every single day. And for those of you who ask, where's God in this situation or that situation, let me tell you how involved God is in everything in your world. Take a deep breath for a second. Did you realize that you had been breathing your entire life and somebody was helping you breathe? That last night you closed your eyes, and while you closed your eyes, you still breathed. And that not only is God automatically taking care of you even when your eyes are closed and breathing for you, but that He gave you this breath of life from the beginning, and that He put the oxygen in the world for such a thing to happen. You know, God actually turned a planet last night for you. Do you realize that? That as 4 p.m. and 5 p.m. and 6 p.m. came along, that He had been turning the earth away from the sun so that it would become a little darker, and that less light would come into your eyes, which would activate nighttime hormones that would allow you to heal and relax and replenish, because that's the kind of God we have. And that in the morning, the earth would continue to turn around the sun that He made, that is so powerful and warm and full of light that has never been extinguished, that He would continue to turn our planet around it so that light would hit your eyes and wake you up and turn on your showtime hormones and make things happen, like get your thyroid activated and help you burn fuels to make energy so that you could function optimally. All that was happening without you asking for it, because God wants you to serve His purposes in this world. And like I say in so many of my seminars, we are on this earth to glorify God, and our entire eternity will be about glorifying God. But as I said a moment ago, sometimes we miss the smallest things, which are really the biggest things that God has provided for us. And I want to highlight one of those today: the use of oxygen and anemia and pre-anemias and hypoxias and things that can make us not function optimally. But if you could find the cause as to why your body is not using this amazing thing called oxygen to its fullest, how you could maximize your life. So let's think about it for a second. There are certain things that every cell in our body needs. They include water, oxygen, and nutrients, and all the things I just mentioned were provided for us in the Garden of Eden. Everything was made on days 1 through 6 so that Adam and Eve could have everything that they would need to sustain their life in a perfect environment. And God had already provided the breath of life, and He made trees to continue to sustain the oxygen. And man would give off carbon dioxide because they use this oxygen and would feed the trees that would give off oxygen, and the symbiotic relationship that only God could create. And so this oxygen is really important, but so is water and so is nutrients. They're all very important. But the thing is that without nutrients, you could survive a little while because your body is made of nutrients, and your body could break down and have nutrients for other purposes. Like your bones have nutrients, and your body could break down bone to provide calcium and phosphorus and other things to your body as necessary. So we could live without nutrients for a little while in case of a famine. And to some degree, you could live without water for a few days. but you would die in a few days. So thank God he made the water that you get to drink and eat, because the best way to get water in your body is definitely to eat foods that have water. That's the smartest way to become hydrated. But the thing about oxygen is that you cannot live past minutes without oxygen. That oxygen is probably your greatest need. And without it, you'd be dead. And the thing is, there are conditions in the body, like anemias, in which your body's having a hard time using oxygen. And without it, you could almost be dead or function horribly. And the thing about anemia is there are many kinds of anemias, and people are not being diagnosed with the kind of anemia that they might have. They're just being told that they have anemia. Or worse yet, people aren't being told that they have an issue using oxygen or pre-anemia until their number passes a certain point, at which point they're told they're anemic. In other words, you could be progressing down the path of a less functional life every single day, but just because your number hasn't crossed over the threshold at which they call it anemia, no one's telling you that you have the beginnings of a problem. So God created this oxygen to maximize our lives. I mean, every cell in our body respires. Do you understand that? It's not your lungs that take oxygen in, and that's all that happens with that oxygen, but that oxygen goes from your lungs inside of red blood cells held by a protein called hemoglobin, and it's transferred through your body to every single cell because your cells absolutely need this oxygen as badly as you do. In fact, you are made of all these cells. So just think, you got mini me's inside of you that absolutely need this oxygen so that they can work. And if you were just to cover your nose for 30 seconds to a minute, you'd find out how desperate your body is for this oxygen that God provided without your asking. And your cells are just as desperate for that oxygen. You see, oxygen allows your body to combust fuels, meaning that it allows the fuels that you put into your cells, like the food that you eat and the body fat that you have, to be turned into a spark of energy so that that cell can perform like God designed that cell to perform, and that all your 100 trillion cells together would be able to perform like God designed you to perform, and that I would perform like that, and that somebody else would perform like that, and together we would all be the body of Christ. And that's what God desires, is for us to function at our optimal. But you can't be functioning optimally if you don't have optimal amounts of oxygen. I mean, oxygen is the number one thing we need. Without it, you die very shortly. And with little of it, you function halfway. And there are a lot of people out there who are not aware that their body is not using oxygen properly. In fact, when a person comes to see me, if I find any level of anemia, anything that's going on with their body's ability to carry oxygen, I have to make that a priority, because your body certainly makes that a priority. Nothing in your body will heal if you're lacking oxygen. Health can't happen if you have any level of pre-anemia or anemia. This is a key to not only healing, but this is the key to thriving. So take that breath right now and just realize that God has provided you oxygen every single day of your life. He's never failed on that. He provides all our needs according to his riches and glory in Christ Jesus, just like it says in the Bible. And God has provided that for us, but you're not always maximizing that breath. Not just because you're not taking the deep breath, but because even if you take that deep breath, it doesn't mean that your red blood cells can carry that oxygen optimally. And so when we come back from the break, we're going to talk a little bit about how your body carries oxygen, how to look at your blood tests to understand what kind of anemia you might have or pre-anemia you might have, and how to maximize how you carry this amazing thing called oxygen. Hold on tight.
Coming up next, more with Dr. Tony Ganem here on Your Body for God. Stay with us.
Hi, this is Dr. Tony Ganem from the Body Pro Wellness Center. You're God's greatest creation, designed to thrive and function beyond what you believe your limits are, to fulfill God's purposes for you on this earth, and to punctuate your life with well done, good and faithful servant. Imagine trillions of your cells thriving, making massive amounts of energy, especially from fat. You'd be healthy, and the side effect would be an energetic and slimmer you. So join us for Your Body for God, a free seminar that teaches you godly principles with lasting results. We talk about weight loss, the thyroid, cholesterol, hormones, blood sugar, sleep, and more. It's a free seminar next to Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa, and seating is limited. So register now at bodypro.com or call 888-300-1888. Once again, that's bodypro.com or 888-300-1888. Body Pro. Find the cause, honor God, and be blessed.
Welcome back to Your Body for God. Once again, here's Dr. Tony Ganem.
All right, welcome back. This is Dr. Tony Ganem from Your Body for God Radio and the Body Pro Wellness Center in Orange County, California. And we went to break, and as we went to the break, we talked about how important it is to not neglect God and how amazingly He has provided all our needs, water, oxygen, nutrients, but how easy it is to miss how God is continually providing all those needs every single day. And just for a moment, if you're driving, please don't do this, but just thank God for that for a moment. Just say, close your eyes and thank God and say, thank you for providing all my needs every single day, including right now. The fact that I can take a breath, the fact that I can freely eat food, the fact that you've provided all of the water, that every cell in my body could have its needs fulfilled by an amazing creator sustainably for our eternity. Take a moment and thank God for that. Don't neglect God. In fact, look for God in the things, the little things that are happening every day. Think about it, that breath that you took, that little bit of fresh air that hit your face. That might be God just petting you for a moment. The fact that you hear birds serenading you every single day, the fact that you can feel the warmth of the sun. Who do you think has provided that? Let's not just avoid neglecting Him, but actually let's look for Him in everything we do every single day. And as mentioned before the break, we talked about how oxygen is like one of the easiest things to not understand that God is providing to us all the time. And it happens to be our greatest need, physical need, other than obviously God, our greatest physical need, without which we would die in minutes. And that there were people who are living in pre-anemias who are existing without perfect levels of oxygen, but they're not told that they have an issue carrying oxygen until they cross a certain threshold. And this is not an on-off switch. You don't have a problem when you cross a certain number, and you don't have a problem as you're approaching it. You do have a problem as you're approaching anemia. But a lot of people aren't told that they have some sort of an issue carrying oxygen until they cross a certain threshold, at which point they're already going to function 50% worse. And 50% less oxygen means a whole bunch less energy and less healing and less fulfilling the purpose that God has created you for. So we have to find if a person has anemia, and we have to define anemia and then actually talk about pre-anemias and the causes of these anemias. So let me first say that when I say anemia, most people think right away that I'm talking about iron. And I want to tell you that iron anemia is the number one anemia out there, that a lot of people have iron-related anemia, but not always due to iron deficiency. There are other causes of iron anemias. But iron anemia is the most common thing. I will tell you, though, that it's becoming more and more prevalent to have other types of anemias that are forming, like inflammatory causes of anemia and protein causes of anemia, or malnutrition causes of anemia, or actually genetic causes of anemia that we're going to actually talk about in a moment. So the first thing you do when you look for, how well a person is carrying oxygen is you look for their red blood cell count. Now, what this red blood cell count is basically they're going to take some blood, and they have a set amount of blood they're going to take, and they're going to say, in this blood, how much of it is liquid and how much of it is red blood cells. And so they're going to count the number of red blood cells in this part of the blood that they have in this test tube. And basically, you want to make sure that you have enough red blood cells because these red blood cells carry the oxygen. So the count, the number of red blood cells that you're going to have is very important. Now, I want to let you know that it's very easy to skew this number. I mean, if you're at all dehydrated, meaning that you have less liquid in your blood, and now they take the same amount of blood, but it has less liquid, it's going to have more red blood cells in it. So if you feel dehydrated, if you know you don't drink enough water, if you know that you don't eat God food, then know that this can be an artificially elevated amount, meaning that it can look like you have plenty of red blood cells. And on your blood test, some of the signs of dehydration might be that you might see an albumin count. Albumin is a protein that the liver makes, and if you see that it's elevated beyond 5, let's say, that's a sign of dehydration as well. And if you see a high sodium and a high potassium, maybe on the higher side of the range, these are things that would give you a clue that maybe you have dehydration. Another marker would be a high blood urea nitrogen. So kind of looking at your blood test for elevated albumin, elevated sodium and potassium, elevated blood urea nitrogen. These are clues that you might be dehydrated. And if you are dehydrated, it can actually mask an anemia or a pre-anemia very easily, because it would actually show up in your blood test as if you have plenty of red blood cells, when in fact it only showed up as plenty of red blood cells because you had less liquid in your blood. In general, I like to look at the red blood cell counts and ideal levels of red blood cells. For males, it would be somewhere between 4.4 red blood cells to 4.9 red blood cells for every unit of blood. And for females, it would be slightly lower. It'd be somewhere between 3.9 to 4.5. Again, these would be ideal levels. And when I say female, I'm talking about a woman who's still menstruating or having a period, because really, that's how she loses some blood. So it's a little more normal for a woman to have a red blood cell count a little less than a male. But, that doesn't mean she can't strive for the same levels, too. Ideal would be somewhere around 4.4 to 4.9. That way she could carry the oxygen ideally in her body. And for a postmenopausal female, somebody who's not having a period, not losing blood anymore by way of her cycle, she should have the same levels as a male, somewhere about 4.4 to 4.9 red blood cells per unit of blood. So that's kind of an ideal. And if you see less than that, we have to find out why your body's not making ideal levels of red blood cells. In order to make red blood cells, you need lots of nutrients. You need vitamin C, you need zinc, you need so many things. B12 and folate and iron and many other nutrients. So nutrients are always a key here. But so is a healthy kidney and healthy bone marrow, and many other organs have to be working right. Health is the thing you have to look for, is maximizing health. And as a result of maximizing health, you see these things like red blood cells would be optimal. And when red blood cells are optimal, you can function amazingly. And so the key is always to look for how to become healthier. That's the key. But in becoming healthier, one of the things you want to look for is, do I make ideal amounts of red blood cells? And again, for males, we want 4.4 to 4.9. And even in females, we want that same number. But it's more normal for a female who's having a cycle to be somewhere between 3.9 to 4.5. Notice she can be at 4.5, which is within the male range. And that's something to strive for, having ideal amounts of red blood cells. Now, the red blood cells are important, but what's more important is how much hemoglobin, this protein that carries oxygen, exists in the red blood cells. And if you don't have enough protein in your body, if you don't have enough animal proteins, for instance, or you don't eat enough proteins because you're a vegan and you choose to have a low protein lifestyle, this can affect how much hemoglobin you make. And hemoglobin is an important component to this entire thing. In fact, the way most people get diagnosed with anemia is when their hemoglobin count drops. Now, ideally, the hemoglobin would be somewhere between 14 to 15, and that's where I want everybody to be, female, postmenopausal female, males. But when a woman's still having a cycle, it's normal for a woman to have a hemoglobin count around 13.5 to 14.5. Now, the thing is that from lab to lab, hemoglobin, or the reference range for hemoglobin, varies greatly. Some labs say, well, we want it at least at 11.7, and some say, no, it really should be 12 point something. And the question is, why does it vary from lab to lab? I mean, people shouldn't be judged on health differently from lab to lab. But actually, they're not judging health. They're deciding about your disease. And basically, if you get under that number, you're called anemic. So in one lab, you're anemic when you're under 11.7. The other lab might say 12.5. And I'm going to tell you that you begin to function less perfectly when your hemoglobin count is less than 13.5 for a female and less than 14 for a male. I mean, ideally, you'd be somewhere between 13.5 to 15, male or female. But as soon as you get less than 13.5, you're not optimal. You're just not diagnosed as anemic until it gets to the 12s or the 11s, which is really bad. Now, I want to make sure you get this. The point is that without hemoglobin, you can't carry oxygen. And so having less than optimal amounts of hemoglobin means you're going to have less than optimal amounts of oxygen going around your blood, which is a problem. It means that, hey, you're not going to function optimally. And that's important because I don't think we should just be assessing people for, hey, how close are you to death, but really, how well are you functioning? So just kind of recapping these things, we want to make sure we have enough red blood cells, that we're not dehydrated and masking the number of red blood cells we have, and that these red blood cells actually have plenty of hemoglobin, this protein that can carry oxygen. And ideally, we'd have plenty of water, plenty of red blood cells, and plenty of oxygen in our body by way of hemoglobin in our body. And again, for the note takers out there, basically, I would love everybody to have a red blood cell count in the 4s, 4.4 to 4.9 for males, and 3.9 to 4.5 for females. And I want everybody to have a perfect amount of hemoglobin, the protein that carries oxygen. And I want for males to have somewhere between 14 to 15. Definitely postmenopausal females should be in the same kind of range. And females who are having a period, we expect you to lose some blood, and so therefore you'd lose some hemoglobin. But ideally, you'd be somewhere in the same range. But for the most part, we expect 13.5 to 14.5 on the hemoglobin count. But this is important. Unless your hemoglobin is under the lab range for the lab that you're actually doing it, and understand that it changes from lab to lab, you're not told you have a problem. You're not told that you're anemic, and I think that's a problem because a lot of people are on the verge of being anemic, and they can't function right. Their oxygen utilization is just not perfect, and they sense it in every cell of their body, and they can't heal, and they can't recover. And so I want to find out how ideal you are, and how do I help you become more ideal? I want to find the causes of why you're not making hemoglobin, why you're not making red blood cells. And there's so much detail involved in this, but I'm just trying to give you the basics of it today. We need to have water, oxygen, and nutrients to function perfectly. And we just found out a moment ago how water is involved in anemia. If you're dehydrated, you can mask it. How anemia influences your oxygen, and how nutrients influence how many red blood cells you make and how much hemoglobin you make. And it's critical from the beginning that you have a lot of health happening to you. But you can't maintain this health unless you're making perfect red blood cells that carry oxygen. And so I find this to be the number one place you have to make a change if you're not healthy, to find the reason why you're not perfect in carrying oxygen. Now, the values that come after that are values that tell me about the size of your red blood cells. And basically, if I find that the MCVs and the MCHs are on the high side, it kind of tells me that we're leaning more towards a B12 or folic acid kind of anemia. And if I find that the MCVs and MCHs in your blood test are low, it kind of gives me a clue that you have maybe some sort of an iron-related anemia. Now, it doesn't mean an iron deficiency, but it means it's iron-related. And the reason I distinguish those two things is iron is the most inflammatory chemical on the entire planet. You put that in your body, and if you don't need it, then you can actually make your body worse. So you actually want to find out if it's an iron deficiency or some sort of iron utilization issue. And you can find this out by doing extra tests like what's called the total iron binding capacity, what's called the ferritin count, and also your iron counts and percent saturations. These are extra tests that your doctor should be testing if they find that your red blood cell count is not perfect, if they find that your hemoglobin is not perfect, so that we can maximize your health. All right, we're going to go to break and come back and share a little bit more. Be right back.
Coming up next, more with Dr. Tony Ganem here on Your Body for God. Stay with us.
Hi, this is Dr. Tony Ganem from the Body Pro Wellness Center. You're God's greatest creation, designed to thrive and function beyond what you believe your limits are, to fulfill God's purposes for you on this earth, and to punctuate your life with well done, good and faithful servant. Imagine trillions of your cells thriving, making massive amounts of energy, especially from fat. You'd be healthy, and the side effect would be an energetic and slimmer you. So join us for Your Body for God, a free seminar that teaches you godly principles with lasting results. We talk about weight loss, the thyroid, cholesterol, hormones, blood sugar, sleep, and more. It's a free seminar next to Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa, and seating is limited, so register now at bodypro.com or call 888-300-1888. Once again, that's bodypro.com or 888-300-1888. Body Pro. Find the cause, honor God, and be blessed.
Welcome back to Your Body for God. Once again, here's Dr. Tony Ganam.
All right, welcome back to Your Body for God Radio. This is Dr. Tony Ganam, and time always passes by so quickly when I'm doing this show. You know, we're talking about how to use oxygen, and we can look at your blood test and get an idea of how you're making red blood cells and how you're making protein to carry this oxygen. The size of the red blood cells gives you a clue as to whether nutrients are the issue. If it's B12 and folic acid, you're going to have immature red blood cells, and immature red blood cells can't carry oxygen very well. If you're lacking iron, your red blood cells are not going to be carrying oxygen very well, and so you can see how nutrients are so important in your anemia. But we also said that there's a possibility that the size of the red blood cell is kind of normal, and that could be a sign of inflammation and some sort of a protein deficiency causing any kind of a pre-anemia or anemia. And so you want to make sure that you're understanding all the things that it takes to make perfect red blood cells to carry oxygen. So I want to tell you that there are many kinds of anemias out there besides iron, B12, and folic acid. There's copper deficiency anemia because copper is important. Vitamin C deficiency anemia because vitamin C is important in the making of red blood cells. There are testosterone deficiency anemias. There are estrogen deficiency anemias. There are many kinds of anemias. And then there are very much different kinds of pre-anemias, of course, and all of it means you're not going to maximize your life. And so you want to figure these things out. You want to find out what is stopping me from making the best red blood cell in the world. Also, the kidneys are very important in the making of red blood cells. They stimulate your bone marrow to make the red blood cells in the first place. So that's important. And the thyroid. Nothing can function right if your thyroid is not functioning right. So we really want to get to the crux as to what's causing your body not to make optimal amounts of hemoglobin and red blood cells, because it can affect how you use oxygen. But the number one thing that I find that is causing so many anemias these days is digestive issues. If you have a digestive issue or you take antacids and you just don't make acid properly in your stomach, you're not going to absorb the very nutrients it takes to make red blood cells. B1, B2, B3, B6, B12, folic acid, zinc, iron, magnesium, manganese, calcium, phosphorus, and protein. So digestive issues, fix them, and you can absorb nutrients that let you make the proteins that carry oxygen. All right, we've run out of time. God bless your week, and we'll talk to you next week, and we'll see you at one of our seminars. Blessings.
You've been listening to Your Body for God with Dr. Tony Ganam, a doctor of chiropractic and a certified holistic nutritionist. To learn more about Dr. Tony's free nutritional health and weight loss seminars, go to bodypro.com. That's bodypro.com. The views and opinions expressed on today's program are those of Dr. Tony Ganam's and not meant to take the place of your doctor's advice. Your Body for God with Dr. Tony Ganam is sponsored by the Body Pro Wellness Center.